how to turn average stories into cliffhangers. When we go into the 80s, what we have in the savannah in Africa is a drought. Everybody's waiting for the rain. All the water holes are drying up. There's this persistent drought and nothing is changing. And the animals are getting more and more desperate as food is scarce. Now, were all the animals affected? What we find is that not all of them were affected. The kudu were doing just fine. And the reason why the kudu was doing so well was because of the acacia tree. These are acacia trees, and what happens with acacia trees is they're very resistant to drought, so they continue to be fine even under drought conditions. But they have these thorns, devil thorns as they're called, and the thing is that the kudu don't care. They're able to work around, but the kudu were after a while dropping dead, and they couldn't tell why they were dropping dead. So they did an examination with them. Now, the one thing that they found was there was no malnutrition. They were still eating all the leaves and stuff, and they were still dying. But some of them were dying in hundreds and thousands, and the others weren't dying. And the thing you have to understand about Africa is it's not an open area. You think of Africa as this vast place, but in effect, it's a whole bunch of reserves with kind of fences and stuff. So the kudu are in these sections. And what they found was that there was this what they found was there's this inconsistency. So they found that the acacia was actually pouring out tannin, and that some of the kudu were eating so much of the acacia tree that the acacia tree decided to put out some poison in the form of tannin, and this went into the bodies of the kudu, and some of them started to die. Effectively, what was happening was that the acacia tree was sending out a message, which is, you can't eat too much of me. You have to pay attention. And when we make presentations, we're kind of sending out the same message, which is, I'm standing here in front of you. I'm going to give you a compelling message. You have to pay attention. So that's really what this is all about. This is what story is about. When you tell a story, people are interested, and they're interested only if the story is not boring. And so that's what we're going to do. How to keep attention with stories. We take them from average to cliffhangers. So what makes a cliffhanger? Well, what makes a cliffhanger is a certain number of elements, but the way that we go about it is not to necessarily construct it, but first to audit it. The housekeeping, I'm going to take 35 to 45 minutes. You can write down your learning. And then if we have time for questions, we'll take some questions. What are the three elements that we're going to cover? The first is the wall. The second is suspense. And third is the blah. We start out with the first one, which is the wall. We're going to cover three things here as well. What is the wall? Then how do we draw that story so that it becomes visual, so that when we go to the cafe or when we're sitting in a part of our room, we can draw that out and figure it out. And finally, we'll take away the wall and we'll see how it works. So let's start with the first one, which is, what is the wall? The wall is effectively when things go absolutely wrong, when everything turns not terribly wrong, but sometimes just instead of a left turn, we have a right turn. And for this first one, we're going to see the story of the barnacle goose. We're going to see how this story is crafted by the BBC.
The perfect launch. And a controlled drop. This is as good a descent as it's possible to make. Its parents are there to meet it. A little dazed, perhaps, but all in one piece. One gosling, at least, hasn't made it. And this chick appears to be in a bad way. At last, it responds to its mother's calls. The resilience of a barnacle goose chick is extraordinary. But there are still chicks unaccounted for, somewhere amongst the rubble. The parents can't risk searching because they need to lead their two survivors away quickly before predators arrive. A third one has made it. But it needs to catch up. Reunited. 3 out of 5 chicks have made it. Without such a dramatic start in life, it's unlikely any of them would have even got this far.
So that was one kind of story, and we will audit that story. But let me take you to the next story, which is the Beijing Olympics. This is the finals of the 200-meter butterfly, and Michael Phelps is about to jump in the water. He's got his opponent, Milorad Čavić, and Phelps jumps into the water, and the moment he hits the water, he knows something is wrong. And he knows something is wrong because he can't see anything. Water has gone into his goggles. And you would think that he would panic, but instantly he's back in Michigan. He's back in Michigan because his coach, Bob Bowman, had trained him for this moment. He had deliberately stomped on his goggles at one point in time and got him to go into the water and swim. He had at other times turned off the lights in the swimming pool in Michigan, and he had made him swim, and he'd made him count the strokes. How many strokes for the first one? How many for the second one? How many for the third? So he had trained him to be blind when he was in the pool. And then suddenly Phelps is back in the pool. He's in Beijing again, and he's swimming, and the crowd is roaring, and he goes the first pass, the second pass, the third pass. He's swimming blind. And then eventually he hits the touchpad, rips off his goggles and looks up. And the seconds pass, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds. And then everything comes up on the screen, and he's won the gold medal, and he's broken the world record. Now, these are two separate stories, and both of them have a certain amount of tension in them, and we're going to look at what this tension was. So with the barnacle goose, we had certain situations, and there was a storyline, but there was all these red spots, boof, bang, 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 where things are happening, and really that's what the wall is all about. So when we look at the wall, we have a visual representation of the wall. And when we have the storyline of the barnacle goose, it goes smack, smack, smack. It rolls, it rolls, it rolls. And that's when you feel your heart going, oh, what's happening here, because that's the wall. That's the part in the story where the heartbeat increases. That's the part that makes stories alive. Otherwise, it's just a bunch of one thing after another, after another, after another. But this is what makes stories alive. And then you realize, oh, wait, this chick hasn't made it, or has it made it? And what we have there is just a graphic representation of the wall. And when you write stories, this is what you have to do. You have to create this timeline and go, this is going up, this is going down, this is where the wall hits. When we have Michael Phelps, we have the same thing. He jumps in the pool and immediately there is chaos. With the chicks, we took some time to get to the chaos. We took some time to get to the wall, but with Michael Phelps, it's in an instant, the goggles are filled with water. He starts to trail behind. There are more problems, but the problems, the wall depends on your story. What is that story? The wall can come in the beginning, it can come in the end, it could come in the middle. I'll give you a third example, which is The Brain Audit, which is the book that we have on our website. We've been selling this since the year 2000. When I started to sell this book, there were loads of marketing books already in place. And how do you stand out when you're trying to get a story across? Now, the Brain Audit is actually a bunch of elements, like we call it the 7 red bags. So the way the story goes is like this. You get on a flight, and then you put 7 red bags on that flight. And then you get off on the other side, and you're waiting for your red bags at your airport. And then one red bag comes out, and you're happy. And then the second one comes out, and you're happy. And then there's an orange bag, and then there's a purple bag. And you're waiting, and then the third bag comes out, and then the fourth, and then the fifth, and then the sixth. The question is, when do you leave the airport? Now, when we had this story, we were able to get the message across because everybody said the same thing, which is, we don't leave the airport until we have 7 red bags. And that was the pitch. The pitch was, unless you have 7 red bags, you don't get the customer to buy. The customer hesitates. They say, I want to think about it. They want to talk to their uncle, their grandfather, whatever, and you create hesitation. And no matter whether you're telling a story for a documentary or you're telling a story for selling something or just a presentation, what you've got to understand is there has to be a wall. And the storyline needs that wall. With the Brain Audit, we see the wall as well. Now, what we can do is we can take that wall away. And when we take that wall away, what we get is, we'll see how it looks. So the absence of the wall is just a bunch of things, which is, let's say we are going to the airport. We go to the airport, we check in, we go through customs, we go through immigration, we go through something else, and then we get on the plane. And you go, where's the story? The story is the wall. The story is, while you were going through customs, you dropped your passport. That's the wall. When you have a U-turn, when you have a left turn, it's a right turn, that's the wall. And that's really the first thing that you have to have in every story. So what we've covered so far is, what is the wall? The wall is the left turn instead of the right turn. The wall is when you lose your passport. The wall is when the orange bag comes out instead of the red bag. The wall is when the bird literally hits the wall. That's when you start to pay attention. That's when your heartbeat goes up. So we draw that story visually because then we can see it very clearly. Where is that wall coming up? And finally, we can take away those elements. And when we take away those elements, the story should appear to be flat. And when it is flat, we know, oh, wait, this wall is really doing something for us. So that's the first part of a story, which is the wall. Let's go to the second part, which is the suspense. What is suspense? That's the first thing we'll cover. Most of us know what is suspense, but what is suspense? Then we look at how do we deconstruct suspense? And finally, when do you insert suspense? Do you insert it in the beginning, in the middle? When do you insert suspense? So let's start out with what is suspense. Now, just before we go into this, the definition of suspense was really best done by Alfred Hitchcock, who was a movie maker. And what he said was, suspense is when you know who the murderer is. You know in advance who the murderer is. And right through the movie, you're going, why can't they tell? Why can't they tell? Mysteries when it just pops up and it's gone in a flash, where you're not sustaining it. So we see this in Ben Zander. If you watch this, this thing on TED.com, this video, what he talks about in his presentation is the story of Hamlet. And Hamlet's uncle has to be, I mean, Hamlet has to avenge his father's death, so he has to kill his uncle, and he goes close to killing his uncle, he doesn't, he close to killing his uncle, he doesn't, he doesn't, he doesn't, he doesn't, he doesn't. And the critics say it's procrastination. But that's what Ben Zander tells you. He tells you that you know that he is going to do this task. You don't know when he's going to do the task. And you know that the moment he kills his uncle, that's it. The story's over. So suspense is you are telling us when the chick is going to jump, and then it starts to jump. And then it goes through this whole sequence. You know when those red bags are going to come out, but then you don't know in which sequence they'll come out, will all the bags come out? So you know the ending. That is what suspense is, where you have already revealed the ending, and now you're working backwards from there to create that level of suspense. So the suspense doesn't just land in stories that you make for presentation. It depends on everything. So he talks about Chopin, and he specifically talks about Prelude number 4 in E minor. And he talks about how the goal is E. He has to get to that chord, which is E. But this is how he does it. He goes B, C, which is sad and happy, sad and happy, sad and happy. And so it's B, C, B, C. So he's creating that suspense. We know we're moving towards E. And then he goes to A, and then he goes to G, and then he goes to F, and then he should be going to E. After F, he should be going to E, but he doesn't go to E. He goes to B again. And so he's creating the suspense in a musical format. And then he goes to F sharp, and then he plays 4 deceptive cadences, which seem to be E, but they're like not quite E. And you're going like, when is he getting there? When is he getting there? When is he going to finish it? And then finally gets to E, and you go, oh, that was so cool. And that is what suspense is. Suspense is when you know the ending, you reveal the ending, and then you take the person right through it. And that's kind of, you know that Phelps is going to win the world record right at the start. But the suspense is telling you the story in a format so that you have to pay attention. You put in the wall, you put in the suspense, and then you have to pay attention. And this is the kind of audit that you're doing with the story, which is, hey, do we have the wall? Hey, do we have suspense? And finally, we get to the blah. But at this point in time, we're still looking at suspense. So what is suspense? Suspense is knowing the ending, but avoiding the resolution. Resolution is a big word for we're avoiding resolving the issue. We're going to make you wait in an interesting way. And you are going to wait because you want to know the ending. How do we deconstruct suspense? When we look at the barnacle goose, here's how it rolls. Chicks chirping, the chirping continues. Then we have the jump. Then, Attenborough talks about the perfect launch. Then the control drop. Then he says, oh, this is as good as it gets for a jump. Then we start to see them falling, and they continue to fall, and they hit the side of the cliff face. So where is the suspense? And that's what we have to look at. The chicks chirping. So you see that drop. You see how far they have to drop, and you go, oh, really? They're going to jump? So the suspense starts straight away. The chirping continues. It doesn't go straight. Oh, let's jump. No. We actually have the chirping continuing for quite a while with that video. Then it's the jump, blah, 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 which I'm saying blah, 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 which is what it is. It's blah, blah, blah. And then it falls. And as it's falling, there's that music as it falls. And it's falling, and it's falling. And you're going like, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And it continues to fall. And then, boof, you have the wall, hits the side of the cliff face. And your heart skips a beat. And then it hits again, and the wall, again, your heart skips a beat. So what we're doing here is we're auditing our story for suspense. We're auditing our story for for the wall. With the Phelps story, again, we have the same thing. Leaky goggles, he's trailing behind. He's back in Michigan. He's still back in Michigan. This is just the storyline. So you could write this in a graphic format or in text, but this is just the storyline. Where is the suspense? First, we have the problem. He jumps in the pool. There's a problem. And then he starts trailing. And you go, oh, how's this going to end? We know that he's going to win the world record because theoretically, at least, it's Michael Phelps. But he's already trailing behind. Why is he trailing? He's the world champion. Why is he trailing? What's happened to him? Then it goes through, one lap, second lap, third lap. He's counting the strokes. Again, as I'm building that up in the story, as the story is unfolding in a book, in a documentary, in any form, what we have is the suspense. Is he going to make it? First lap, second lap, third lap. Then he hits the touchpad. He's finished the race. He looks up. If you go back to this recording, if there's a recording, you'll notice I don't say he looks up and he's won the gold record. I say he looks up and then 1 second passes and the second passes and the third second passes. And that is suspense. That is, I need to get to E, but I'm not going to get to E. I'm going to get to F sharp. I'm going to get to the 4 cadences. And then finally, you're going to get the final thing, which is the golden world record, which you know anyway, but that's the suspense. So when we remove the suspense, this is what it looks like. He jumps in the pool, leaky goggles moment, the crowd roars, he does the 1 lap, second lap, third lap, he hits the touchpad, he wins the gold record. He wins the, not gold record, the world record and the gold medal. And so what we have here is just the story. We have a bit of the wall, but we don't have suspense. Now, when you have stories that you listen to in podcasts and stuff, you can tell whether the people know what suspense is. You can tell when they know a wall. Usually a story has a wall because otherwise it's not a story. But the crafting of the story becomes when you put in the suspense. So you remove the suspense. And this is a good way to go about just auditing your story. You write the story, put in the walls, and then put in, then read the story and go, is there anything that's kind of not getting to E, getting to that note E? Am I going straight to E, or am I going through the F sharp and the G and the B and whatever? And that's how you know that it's working or not. So we just had one thing there, which is that wall and then nothing else. Now, the problem that most of us are going to have is we are going to make the mistake of trying to add the suspense when writing the story. And some stories just have suspense in them. So they have inbuilt suspense. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? We already have that as part of the story. Not all stories have that suspense factor. So you have to know what is the ending. You have to know where is that resolution going to be. And then you're going to have to say, how am I going to delay this in an interesting manner? If you have a story that already has inbuilt suspense, which is quite rare, then you're lucky. But most of the time, you have to do it after. So you have to go, I have this story, and I have to delay it here. He has hit the touchpad in the swimming pool, and the ending is that he's won the gold record, the gold and the world record. But we have to put in the suspense here, which is 1 second passes, 2 seconds pass, 3 seconds pass, and then the board lights up. So you have to put in a lot of that suspense later. And that's the whole crux. And probably, musicians do that as well, which is, I know that I have to get from B to C, B to C, B to C, and I have to get to E, but I'm not going to go to E. I'm going to find some detours. And really, if you want another way to express suspense, then you go, how can I take this on a detour? So you just say, take a little story of, I don't know, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, or Goldilocks is actually not a very good story. But Red Riding Hood, she has to go to her grandma's house. That's the end point. But guess what? She stops on the way. She meets the wolf. That's the detour. every time you look at fairy tales, these are mostly Western fairy tales, but even in the Eastern fairy tales, which you haven't probably heard of if you're not from the East, there is always going to be that factor of that detour. There's going to be this Cinderella wants to go to the ball, but, well, she has, so, hey, 1 second, Cinderella's going to go to the ball, but what happens? And then when she gets to the ball, when she comes back, what's going to happen? She loses the slipper. How does the prince find her? These are all the detours, all the walls and the detours that eventually, how the end of the story is the prince will find Cinderella. But the beginning of the story has a different, kind of different sets of walls and suspense. So usually you're going to have to do that later. You're not going to do that right at the start. If you do it at the start, you get what people call writer's block, because you're scripting this. Even if you're speaking, you have to script it first so that you know the sequence, so you know how it all comes together. So that brings us to the end of the second part, which is what is suspense? And what we found that is suspense can be defined in two ways. The difference between mystery and suspense is mystery is like, boo, and it's over. But suspense is where you tell me where you're going to end. You're going to end with Michael Phelps winning that gold medal, but then there are these problems along the way. Suspense, looked another way, is music written with E in mind, but now I'm going to take some little detours and go F sharp and C. B and C is okay, but F sharp and then some false E's, some deceptive cadences. So that's all those detours that I'm going to make or take that will cause the suspense, that will stop the resolution, stop the issue from being resolved until I'm ready to resolve it. So that's what suspense is. And we deconstruct that suspense by looking at which detours are we going to make along the way. And finally, when do you insert suspense? The average amateur is going to try and insert suspense while writing the story. And the professionals will hope that it has it, but at some point in time, they'll go, okay, story is written. Let me go and have a chai. Let me go and have some coffee. Let me let a day pass. And then after that, I'm going to go and put in some suspense. And then maybe another day passes, and then I'm going to tweak that suspense. And that's how you want to insert suspense later, not before. You want to write it as it goes from A to, as we say in New Zealand, A to Z, or A to Z, as you say in the US. And then after that, you go from A to J and then come back, and then you go back to C, and you're kind of creating these detours, but after. This takes us to part 3, which is the blah, and this is the shortest part of all. So what is the blah? The blah is the in-between information. Often when you're telling a story, you go, and then blah, 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 which is what I did even when I was talking to you earlier. And that's really information. It's not invalid. It's not that it's pointless, but it's kind of the glue that holds it all together. The glue of the story is the blah. We have suspense, we have drama, or rather the wall, and then whatever in between stuff is there is the glue that holds it together. So when we look at a story like this, the chicks chirping, that is like, what are they going to do? The chirping continues, again, suspense. The chick jumps, that's just information. The perfect launch, information. Controlled drop, information. This is the blah. This is what we do with every story. You don't have to worry about this at all. All of us are super good at blah. We do this blah all the time. We just put in lines, so you don't have to, this is not the part that you have to worry. This is just the part that you have to know that it's part of it, that you don't go, oh, wait a second, let me write this so it's completely suspenseful, because that would be a mistake. If you wrote something where the person's heart is beating the whole time, then you're not giving them a chance to rest. So heartbeat has to go up, it has to come down. So we have this roller coaster. Heartbeat up, heartbeat down, heartbeat up, heartbeat down, or in this case, we have heartbeat up, then down, 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 down. That's what the blah does. It allows the listener, the reader, the viewer to rest a little bit before you then go boom all over again. And then you have falling, falling, continuous falling, hits the side of the cliff face. And now we have, so we use the phrase blah because we think, oh, it's just information. But no, it is precise information. It is supposed to reduce your heartbeat. Right now, when I stop speaking, you get some time to rest. That's like empty blah, but it's still blah. It's still giving you that chance to rest. So those are all the suspense bits, as you know, and that's the drama. The gray stuff is the blah. With the Phelps story again, here we go, blah, still back in Michigan, blah, crowd roaring, blah. It's not doing anything. It's just giving you what's happening. Then we get back into the game. Hits the touchpad, big deal. It's blah. He looks up, now we get back to suspense. Seconds pass, suspense, golden world record. Sounds like a really interesting moment, but it's actually just blah. It's what you expected. You expected this right through. You expected the ending right through when you jumped in the pool. Otherwise, I mean, what's the story? It could go a different way. He could lose, as he did to the Singaporean many years later. But this is the kind of story. You already have the ending, and then you're putting in the suspense, you're putting in the wall, you're putting in the blah. Here we go, we're deconstructing again. That was the wall. Then we have the suspense, and the gray spots are all the blah. And we have our story. With the brain audit, it was the same thing. This is something you stand up and you speak and you're selling a product to someone. Again, put 7 red bags on the plane, nothing big. Disembark, nothing big. Waiting for the bags, not a big deal. First red bag, okay. Now my heartbeat is up. I've got the first red bag. Second red bag, yay. Green bag, purple bag. Oh, what's this? This is the wall. Third, fourth, fifth red bag. Now it's exciting again. Sixth red bag. Ooh, almost there. When do you leave the airport? Drama. So we have the blah, we have the wall, we have suspense. And that's really what it's all about. Green bag, purple bag, and when you leave the airport, those are the wall, and the rest is all suspense. And there you have it. So let's summarize what we've learned so far. The first thing is, what is the wall? So the wall is really in the goose, the barnacle goose, literally hitting the wall. But it is a U-turn, it is a detour, it is something where, you know, it is a different kind of note that you hit. And the way to go about it is to draw that story visually. So don't just trust the fact that you're going to be able to write it. Draw it visually because it gives you an understanding of what you're going to write. Then we take out those wall, we take out all the bits that are dramatic, and we find that the story is really boring. The story becomes like check-in. I checked into the airport, I went through this phase, I went through the second phase, it's all blah. Without the wall, it's all blah. So, as I said, we're really good at blah, but now we have to put in the wall. The second thing we have to do is suspense. Suspense is where we do not resolve the issue. We tell you the end, and then we keep you waiting to the end. And you deconstruct that suspense, and you deconstruct that suspense by saying, well, did we take a turn? Did we go to E or did we go to F sharp? Did we go to C? Did we go some other place? So you're always saying, did we take that detour? Because that's what suspense is about. And finally, when do you insert suspense? This is a big mistake. Most people try to insert suspense when writing the piece, the story. Never. Unless the story's already been written for you. Even the Michael Phelps story, the first time I read it, the writer had spent some time crafting that story. If you just read the news report, it doesn't go through that. It just tells you he jumps in the pool, and apparently they had this goggle issue and blah, 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 and it just goes blah, 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 blah. So you want to insert the suspense at the end. And you probably want to do this over 2 or 3 days, maybe even over a week. That space that you take, that enables you to become a better writer and then a better speaker. because you write it, you come back, you insert the drama, you come back, you insert the suspense, you audit it, and then you have it. And you're still taking just 1 hour. It's not like you're taking 7 hours in the week. You spend 45 minutes writing it the first time, doing the little graphic, and then you come back and you fix it and you make it better and better and better. And that's how you tell stories. And finally, the blah is the glue of the story. I'll just go back. So the blah is what we all do really well. So you don't have to worry about that. It's already part of everything that we tell. Okay, so this is the end. We write the sequence, then we add the wall, then we add the suspense. The blah is already the sequence, so we have everything now. And that brings us to the end of this one. I would recommend that you listen to podcasts. We have a podcast called The 3-Month Vacation. It's called 3-Month Vacation because in our business, we take 3 months off. We work for 12 weeks, then we take a month off. We work for another 12 weeks, take a month off. And when I mean off, is like complete off, no emails, nothing. We've done this since 2004. So that's the 3-month vacation. Now, a good thing for you to do if you're into reading transcripts, not me, I don't like transcripts, but I still do this, is to go and to read the transcripts in a lot of detail. Because when you read the transcripts, you probably want to take like a marker and then mark out the areas where the suspense comes in, where the blah is. The blah is already there, so don't worry about the blah. Look at where you're running into suspense, where you're running into the wall. And if you go, now there are about 350 of these on the website at Psychotactics /podcast. You don't have to go to 350, obviously, but go through 10 of them. Listen to those 10. See the tonal changes, see the pace, notice the silence. This is all storytelling. Yes, we have these 3 blocks, but there's also when you go softer and louder and speedier and slow down. So read the transcripts and listen to the same podcast or listen to other podcasts, in the 3-month vacation. And what you will find then is how storytelling is done. Now, what we tend to do is we tend to put in, like, we have 3 sections, just like in this presentation, and every section has 1 or 2 stories. So in every podcast, you're going to get like 6 chances to deconstruct a story. And that's how you're going to get better at storytelling. You're not going to get better at storytelling by just sitting down to write the story. That's nice. You want to deconstruct stories through transcripts and listening, even if you don't like to listen. Because to be a storyteller takes more than just the way you tell the story itself, but also the way you tell the story. How you wait, how you change your voice. That's all part of it. So go to the 3-month vacation. It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everywhere else. But you can also find the transcripts at psychotactics.com/podcast, and then you deconstruct everything. That's pretty much it from me. And there's lots of goodies at Psychotactics. Lots of cartoons. There are recipes as well. I'm going to put some photographs of New Zealand, but that's pretty much it. So I'm going to stop this sharing now if I can.